What's up, friends? I'm Zach Joachim. This is On the Horn, coming at you from my apartment in downtown Richmond after VCU beat South Florida 78-66 today in the first round of the Battle for Atlantis. Impressive win for the Rams, especially on the defensive end against a South Florida team that came in averaging more than 100 points this season, and they hadn't scored any less than 95. So VCU holding them to 66 is incredibly impressive. Lazar Djokovic, game high 20 points, 11 of 18 at the free throw line. South Florida just could not live with him inside. Those 18 free throw attempts are one shy of the program record of 19, set by Sean Hampton in 1998. Shout out to Ian Reniger, VCU bro on Twitter, whose stats are always outstanding, who was the first one to tweet that out. USF just could not live with Djokovic inside. And a really interesting note from the press conference, talked to Lazar and Phil Martelli about this game, and Djokovic said he's got a friend on Oklahoma State, which was playing South Florida last week and beat them 103-95. And Djokovic, in talking with his friend and watching that game, identified that USF really had trouble with its post defense. And he said, like, the Cowboys' bigs combined shot like 40-plus free throws in that game. So here's the quote from Lazar. From that game, I knew they were struggling to guard inside. We as a team, we had a game plan to get the ball inside. When they started doubling, I passed it out. When they tried to guard me one-on-one, I went to work. And Djokovic certainly went to work today. USF led 12-3. It was a really slow start for VCU. But then they rebounded with aplomb. I'm looking forward to my notes here. It was a 14-2 run that VCU had after that 12-3 start, and they led 17-14 after the second consecutive three from Terrence Hill, who finished with 15 points, continues to have a breakout sophomore campaign for the guard, who's just got such an exciting offensive skill set that we saw flashes of last year, but man, he's finding consistency this year. I think that's his third 4-point play of the season too, the second of those two threes. He kind of leaned into it at the top of the key off the dribble, drew the foul, hit the free throw. I've talked about this a couple of times in stories and On the Horn. Shout out to Adam Epstein for this observation a few games ago. Terrence is getting great lift on that jump shot, and what that results in is a couple times I think defenders have come into his landing area, and he's really difficult to contest. And specifically in that one, he got great lift, leaned into the shot, and I think got some contact on the elbow, and that's why he's drawing those 4-point plays at such a good consistency here. I wonder what the program record is for 4-point plays in a season. I don't even know if they keep that. I'm going to have to ask Chris Kowalczyk, but Terrence Hill has got to be on track to eclipse it. And here's Phil on the messaging after that slow start in which South Florida jumped out to the lead. We just had to get back in transition. We knew we had to make them guard. They come at you in a wave in the first 8-10 seconds on the defensive end. Everyone talks about their offense and how they want to score in 6 seconds. And South Florida, you could certainly see it in that first half, really does want to push the pace. But VCU did an outstanding job of forcing them to slow it down. And Phil said, but on the defensive end, they come at you. We knew as long as we got the ball moving and flowing, those next 10 seconds, or really the last 20 seconds of the shot clock, we could take advantage, and that's what we did. And so VCU just kind of had to wait out the defensive blitz a little bit for South Florida in order to settle into their offense. And this game was played at a slower pace, right? I wonder what the tempo number is on the game, because it behooved VCU to slow this down a little bit. And once they were able to play through Djokovic in the post, make South Florida take more time when they had the ball, then the flow of the game really started to favor VCU. Barry Evans, 10 points, 10 rebounds, double-double. The broadcast had it right. He had a steal and a transition dunk in the final seconds of the first half. That put VCU up 36-33 and was an enormous play in terms of momentum, right? I mean, every basket doesn't necessarily count in terms of how it impacts the game just for the points that it gets, and that was a 2-point basket, but it meant so much more than that for VCU, because they came out of the locker room on fire and ended up taking their largest lead at 49-39 on a Djokovic catch and shoot 3-pointer. I think that was kind of demoralizing for USF. Here you got this 6'10", 235-pound big who's beating you up on the inside, and then he hits a 3 from the left wing. That was with 16:06 left to play. Shout out to all the VCU fans who were there, man. If there's anyone watching this from Atlantis, y'all were loud. The VCU chants got really audible, especially in that second half, and that was one of those moments after Djokovic hit that 3. The broadcast commented on it a few times. I don't know how many South Florida fans there were there, but they got much less of a trip And the broadcast was very complimentary of the VCU support because the people who were there were really loud, especially in those moments. Michael Bell. Shout out Michael Bell as well. 7 points, 4 rebounds. That doesn't do justice to his impact in this game. Huge spark off the bench. Obviously, he's always a good defender and a strong rebounder. But he hit a dagger 3 late in that game. Where was it? So I'll go through the last sequence here that was really the nail in the coffin and get to Mike in a second. But with 3:20 to play, Nick Lewis, who had 11 points, was outstanding again. Inbounded to Djokovic near the right corner, and then USF just kind of lost track of the inbounder. Nick raced right to the corner. Lazar fed him, and Lewis hit a catch-and-shoot 3. He loves that corner. For the 3-pointers, that was 71 to 59, VCU's largest lead to that point with about 3 minutes to go. That was really it. And then a couple possessions later, Mike Bell with the dagger, catch and shoot 3 on the left wing off a Nick Lewis assist, 75-59, largest lead of the game. The VCU bench was in an uproar, and the fans, I mean, everyone knows, the battle that Mike has kind of fought with the 3-point shot over the last couple of years, right? With defenders trying to dare him to shoot and sagging off of him. And so the form looks a lot better. He's obviously put in tons and tons of hours in the gym over his college career trying to improve the outside shooting. And so to see one go down for him in a moment like that, big confidence booster for Mike, and the VCU bench went crazy. Look, the over-under for this game was 172.5. That's the highest. Shout out to Ian Reniger again for this one. That's the highest of any VCU game in program history. They hit the under, if you were wondering. And Martelli said, he told his team before the game, the big thing was just limiting their spurts. They're such a team that plays in spurts. He mentioned that term, spurtability. Outside of an early one in the first half, we did that. We were able to keep them off balance, and then we're able to string plays together ourselves. So it's a huge win for VCU. It's a win that they had to have really to keep. I know it's still early in the season. You could catch fire in the A10, but in terms of looking at how you're going to put together an at-large NCAA tournament resume, you had to have this one against a solid South Florida team that obviously, as we've said, can really score it, but one that I think is in the 80s in adjusted efficiency. VCU was favored by 2.5 in this game, so to win by 12 will certainly help the metrics. I think USF was picked to finish second in the American, so that's a team that is going to win ball games over the course of the year, and that 12-point margin of victory is going to be big for VCU and for the A10. And they earn an enormous opportunity with this tomorrow, right? You get to see number 24 Vanderbilt with a lot of Virginia ties, led by Salem native, former JMU coach Mark Byington. They also have Tyler Nickel, who I covered a little bit in his high school career because he's a team-loaded guy. And he played for East Rockingham and is the VHSL's all-time leading scorer. So some fun Virginia ties for Vanderbilt. Like I said, they're number 24 in the country. VCU gets them Thursday at noon in the second round, in an enormous opportunity to face a ranked SEC opponent. If VCU wins that game, it changes the complexion of the season for them in terms of your NCAA tournament at-large hopes. They will shoot up a little bit, I think, in the metrics after the South Florida win. If they can beat Vandy tomorrow, they will skyrocket, and their stock will be way on the rise, and it would be an enormous win, not just for VCU, but for the Atlantic 10. So again, VCU 78, South Florida 66, Lazar Djokovic 20 points. Rams really strong on the defensive end. They get Vanderbilt tomorrow in Atlantis. Everyone have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm a huge sweet potato casserole fan. I'm going to go try and figure out how to cook that right now to bring it to family dinner tomorrow. Y'all stay well. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you tomorrow.